morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday morning worship services of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church in Naperville, Illinois. I am Nell Hazlitt-Bruce, a member of your Board of Trustees, and we're glad you're here, whether you are present in this sanctuary this morning or watching remotely. It's so good to be together. We welcome you to our church and invite you to get to know us better after the service. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another on our spiritual and religious journeys while holding ourselves in covenant. The rich liberal legacy of Unitarian Universalism is rooted in our faith's 7 principles. These principles guide our faithful actions as we work to transform the world to be more just and equitable. You may find these principles listed on our website or on the wall in our social hall. Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. If you are online, we invite you to greet each other through the chat, and if you are present here, I invite you to turn to someone you did not come with and greet them with a wave and a good morning's greeting.
Good morning. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words. No, don't join me. I've got it. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In this sanctuary, we harvest bushels of strength for one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity. In the authentic and gentle manner of our connections, we cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other, for it is the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us.
Whether in person or online.
We are grateful for the gift of your time and attention during this service. Our church community is built entirely from the gifts that we give to it, of time, energy, money, and talent. And today our speaker, Reverend Erica Barron, will give us a new perspective on recognizing our gifts. Reverend Barron is a congregational consultant with the New England region of the National Unitarian Universalist Association. She focuses on helping congregations live into their missions and develop their gifts for spiritual leadership. Before joining the congregational life staff, she served as parish minister for the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Catskills in Kingston, New York, as well as the congregations in Rutland and Bennington, Vermont. She will be delivering her sermon today virtually. Let us open our service this morning with the words of Richard M. Fuchs. For the sun and the dawn, which we did not create, for the moon and the evening, which we did not make, for food which we plant but cannot grow, for friends and loved ones we have not earned and cannot buy, for this gathered company which welcomes us as we are from whenever we have come, for all our free churches that keep us human and encourage us in our quest for beauty, truth, and love, for all things which come to us as gifts of being from sources beyond ourselves, gifts of life and love and friendship, we lift up our hearts in thanks this day.
Please rise as you're able and join us in singing hymn number 1000, Morning Has Come.
And now, please do join me in saying the words of our covenant together. We come together to affirm our relationship with one another, our shared commitment to our Unitarian Universalist principles, and our DuPage UU Church community. We recognize our agency and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous in relationship with each other so that we might transform ourselves and the world.
Our vision of beloved community is rooted in the relationships that we have with each other, our world, and creation. Each week, we share our joys and concerns. Today's flowers are given by the Tang family in celebration of Kristen's mom's Judy Noren's birthday today, and in recognition of Disability Pride Month. Even when the cares of the world weigh on us, may we find joy in our connections with each other and in the pleasures that life holds. Let us care for one another and for ourselves in all ways we can. As we hold in each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken, please join together in a moment of meditative prayer. And now for our moment in meditation, let us sing together.
Please join in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life.
It is time to gather. I have a story today about recognizing a gift that you have and being recognized for that gift. Today's story is Iggy Peck, Architect, by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. Young Iggy Peck is an architect, and he has been since he was 2. When he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. "Good gracious, Ignatius," his mother exclaimed. "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." But her smile faded as a light wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean. "Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks." But Iggy was gone, and he was out on the lawn using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples and temples from modeling clay. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye, and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and coconut pie. Dear Ig had it made until 2nd grade, when his teacher was Miss Lila Greer. And on the very first day, she had this to say: "We do not talk of buildings in here, Gothic or Romanesque. I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new." And she said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2. That might seem severe, but she was sincere. For when she was no more than 7, she had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour on 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group, and she is found 2 days later in a stuck elevator, eating cheese with the French circus troupe. And after that day, it's quite safe today, she thought all building lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that, above all, one ought to avoid them. No ifs, ands, or buts. So as you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howe? No, ma'am, Iggy said. He lowered his head, and his heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now 2nd grade was a bore. After 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. And they crossed an old trestle to a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream. But they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed. And Miss Lila Greer started to scream, "We're trapped here, oh my, alas, kids, goodbye." Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound. Luckily, she fainted, not dead. The class was amazed. They stood there quite dazed, uncertain of what they should do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, which started with Miss Lila's shoe. Soon, each lad and lass there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces, and on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. Boots, tree roots and strings, fruit roll-ups and things, some of which some might not want to mention, were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious bridge, dangling from shoestring suspension. It all became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed that bridge over a stream. There are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. Now, every week at Blue River Creek, elementary and 2nd grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker in t-shirt and sneakers talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course, he's the guy who builds towers from Pi, that brilliant young man, Iggy Peck. It is now time for the kids in the room to go to the Youth RE. We will sing the kids out.
giving of our treasure is how we reciprocate the many gifts we are given by this community. Your contribution supports the programs and operations of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. Giving is also how we live our values in the world. Each month, we share our offerings with an organization nominated by the congregation and selected by the Special Offerings team. During June, our special collection will benefit the Unitarian Universalist Prison Ministry of Illinois, or UUPMI, nominated by Robert Scrocky. UUPMI fosters connections between UU congregations and people incarcerated in Illinois prisons. This group offers liberal religious ministry inside prisons to those individuals who may find themselves in one of the hardest times of their lives. This ministry is carried out through in-prison worship services, covenant groups, pen pal groups, and other programs. UUPMI's work affirms the inherent worth and dignity of these individuals, as well as fostering their own free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Additionally, UUPMI advocates for policy changes that seek to improve the quality of life for those incarcerated both during and after their time in prison. The offering is given and received in a spirit of generosity and gratitude.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours, it'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, ooh, glory, oh, glory, glory, oh, glory, glory.
Hands to the heavens, no one, no weapon formed against, yes, glory is destined. Everyday people and kin become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtapositioning us. Justice for all, just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. True and living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on a bus. That's why we go through America with our hands up. When we go down, we toughen ourselves up. They say stand down, and we rise up. Stop, we on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours, it'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, ooh, glory, oh, glory, 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 glory. The war is not over, victory isn't won. You'll fight on to the finish, and when it's all done, we'll cry glory, glory, oh, glory, glory, ooh, glory, oh, glory, glory. We'll cry glory, glory, oh, glory, glory, ooh, glory, oh, glory, glory.
Selma is now for everyone empowered and loud. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They marched with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, heroes, to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was with the people. Enemy is lethal, a king became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald eagle. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing, our music is the cuts that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. history. No one can win the war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the love, mine eyes have seen the glory.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours, it'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, 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 oh, glory, 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 glory.
The Gift by Alan Cohen. It should be the peak of my teaching career. I've spent years devising techniques to engage students in my class, and they've been successful. But this year is different. No matter what I do, I cannot generate any spark of excitement in the kids. The techniques that I have integrated into my work fall flat, one after another. I blame the students. They have no interest, no leadership, no love of learning. I blame their parents, who do not offer support. Their previous teachers, who failed them and brought them to this mediocre state. It certainly cannot be me. I attend a week-long workshop in the mountains of North Carolina. I think I'm going to learn about myth and story, traditional culture, and multicultural healing. What I bring back is a precious lesson, the gift of a teacher from an African tribal background. I learned that many tribal cultures had in the basic tenets of their philosophy the idea that everyone enters this world with a unique gift. The idea was passed to the ancient Greeks and expressed in the writings of Plato. It became widespread, but seems to have gone into hiding in these modern times. The gift comes with each newborn child, but in the cosmologies of each particular group that embrace the idea, the gift is forgotten upon entering the world. Whether from stepping into the river of forgetfulness, hugging the tree of forgetting, or the birth trauma itself. Once here, the child holds great potential, and it is the most important part of life to discover one's gift and to grow into it. Everything depends on this. Once the gift is known, it is an obligation to give it generously to one's people and the world. One rarely knows the gift until it is seen by someone credible. Then it can be activated. In our culture, the person most likely to see it is a teacher. Returning to my class, I began the process of seeing the gift in each student. There was no dramatic epiphany, but now I felt different about my purpose. Over the years, as in any serious practice, my ability grew. I was able to recognize gifts in particular students and convey this to them. I taught the gift idea to them so that they could see the gifts in others. I realized that students shifting their own thinking could not marginalize others as easily as before. They respected each other. Denying or bullying another person prevents them from giving you their gift. The idea of building my career by using techniques slowly died into the practice of creating an environment in which the students felt gifted and seen. They learned in order to gain skills that would help them give themselves to the world. It made all the difference.
Hello, I am coming to you today from the New England region of the Unitarian Universalist Association. My name is Erica Barron, and I'm a congregational consultant here in New England. In New England, my regional colleagues and I have developed a way of understanding the purpose of congregational life and the practices that can help us lean into this purpose. We call this model spiritual leadership. Spiritual leadership is our term for a way of living that is rooted in your values, giving what is yours to give to the world, and joining with others to create communities of love and liberation for everyone. Spiritual leadership is not only for identified leaders. Everyone can develop their own spiritual leadership. Since every person is unique, spiritual leadership looks different in each individual person, but we can recognize it through the commitment to living our values and offering what we can in community. My team believes that the purpose of congregational life, at its core, is to support everyone in the congregation to find and develop their spiritual leadership, while creating communities of love and liberation for all. We have identified 5 practices that congregations can do in order to fulfill this purpose: covenanting, tending to tradition, doing our inner work, faithful risking, and centering in gifts. Today, I want to talk about the practice of centering in gifts. Our team's understanding of this practice has been deeply informed by Malidoma Some, who was an elder of the Dagara people of Burkina Faso in West Africa, who understood his mission to be bringing this wisdom to the world. My colleague Mek Groot has studied with him extensively, and she has brought his understanding of gifts to us. Malidoma Some is the workshop leader in today's reading who taught the author about gifts. Here's a little more of what Malidoma Some says about gifts. Whether they are raised in indigenous or modern culture, there are 2 things that people crave: the full realization of their innate gifts, and to have these gifts approved, acknowledged, and confirmed. There are countless people in the West whose efforts are sadly wasted because they have no means of expressing their unique genius. In the psyches of such people, there is an inner power and authority that fails to shine because the world around them cannot perceive it. Now, when we say gifts, that needs a little explanation, because we live in a context that is really focused on productivity and marketable skills. So lots of us have learned all kinds of skills and techniques that we use in our work lives, our congregational lives, our families, everywhere we go. There are lots of very helpful skills and techniques for all kinds of tasks and situations, and having a good number of them available to you can be really helpful. I'm all about developing skills. But gifts are something different. Notice that Malidoma Some calls them innate gifts. You are born with them. They are part of your nature. You can develop and hone them for sure, but you don't have to learn them at a basic level because they are part of you. I think of gifts as the things that shine out of us, the things we can't not do, in a joyful way. Some of us have things we can't not do because of harmful conditioning. That's not gifts either. We're talking about the things you just do naturally and joyfully. Like the person whose attention is always drawn to babies and small children, and who interacts with them with such delight and openness that the children love them back. Or the person who is so in love with the earth and soil that their garden is always overflowing. Or the person who can see a jumble of anything, clothes, files, images, ideas, and make of them a beautiful order, and does not find the task onerous, but rather enjoys the challenge, and finds deep satisfaction in its completion. Malidoma Some goes so far as to call this our unique genius. Did you know that you are a genius? We're not taught to think this way about ourselves in our culture. Genius is something a very few, very smart, very accomplished people have. The rest of us are just ordinary. Not spectacular, not special, just ordinary. Even people who were labeled as gifted as children can feel the weight of imposter syndrome. Not actually special or gifted, someday they'll notice that I'm just ordinary. But Malidoma Some tells us that we all have unique genius. So you are a genius. You just have to find the thing that makes you a genius. How do you know what your gifts are? How do you identify your unique genius? Sometimes we just know, but often we need others to help us discover our gifts. This seems strange if a gift is something so core to our being that we can't not do it. That's precisely why it can be difficult sometimes to discern our own gifts. Because gifts come so naturally to us, we may think, that can't be a gift. That's no big deal. Anyone can do that. As it turns out, that is often not true. There is likely something that comes easily and naturally to you that others have to struggle to do. Some gifts are big and showy and hard to miss. I think, for example, of people with a gift for performing. That usually becomes obvious at some point. Or the people with a gift for greeting and welcoming others. You probably met them because they have a gift for meeting you. Other gifts are quieter and subtler. The gift of sitting with someone who is sad or lonely without trying to fix it. The gift of just being there. The gift of creating a physical space that feels calm and beautiful. The gift of asking the key question. The gift of saying the one sentence at the end of an hour-long conversation that sums up the heart of what has been said. These gifts take a little more careful observation to notice. As Malidoma Some says, one of the things we long for is to have our gifts acknowledged, confirmed, and approved. Part of the practice of centering in gifts as a community is to notice each other's gifts and then acknowledge them, to help each other feel deeply seen as people with something to offer, people who embody our own unique version of spiritual leadership. In our reading this morning, we heard about what this looks like in the community of a classroom. In the first few months of my time on the New England regional staff, I went with my colleague Joe Sullivan to a leadership retreat at one of our congregations. Joe led the board members, committee on ministry members, and the minister in an exercise of noticing each other's gifts. We ran around the circle, and for each person, Joe invited others in the room to speak about that person's gifts. And they did. They mentioned things like a sense of humor, the insight to find and ask the key question, a willingness to speak a minority opinion with courage and without bitterness. Each person who spoke about a gift did it so with deep appreciation. I could feel the joy and gratitude in the room, and when we were done, there was a lightness and closeness in the group that hadn't been there before. This is one way of practicing centering in gifts in a congregation. But it was one exercise and one day of a retreat. I've done this exercise a bunch of times since I learned it from Joe, and almost always there is the same joy, excitement, lightness, and closeness. And often this exercise takes far longer than I have planned. I think this is because, as Malidoma Some says, this is something we crave. Not only to have our own gifts seen and confirmed, but also to see and confirm the gifts of others. In fact, I've noticed that people tend to get at least as much joy from telling someone else about their gifts as from having their own gifts confirmed. It feels really good to appreciate each other in this way, and it's such a rare thing. So when we get the opportunity, we want to revel in it. As Unitarian Universalists, one of our principles is to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The practice of noticing and naming each other's gifts is one way to practice this principle. This is one of the ways of noticing the full humanity of others and of promoting everyone's ability to claim and live into their worth and dignity. Right now, I invite you to think of someone who has a gift that has been important to you. What have you seen someone doing with joy and love? What has someone offered to you that has been moving or helpful or supportive or inspiring? Take a moment to say thank you in your heart for this gift. And if you have never told this person the gift you have received from them and what it has meant to you, I invite you to consider doing that. This idea might seem totally awkward. It is strange to me how rarely we tell each other what we appreciate about each other, what we mean to each other. Maybe this is just a New England thing, maybe not. But in New England, it is rare, and so it is awkward. It's something that many of us lack practice in, but if you do it anyway, it is usually appreciated. It is usually a way of spreading some joy. I invite you to imagine ways this could become a more regular part of your life as a congregation. Maybe you want to try the exercise of naming gifts on a committee you're on or in a small group you belong to. If doing it all at once feels overwhelming, maybe you can take turns, lifting up the gifts of one person at each meeting until you've celebrated everyone. Maybe you want to lean into this even more. Maybe those of you who have the gift for taking the congregational lead could make it a point to start telling people the gifts you notice them bringing. If you did that enough, maybe it would be less awkward for others to follow your lead. I called this sermon Receiving Generously because we usually think about giving generously. I know many of you give very generously of your gifts and your skills and your other resources to your congregations. That is also an important spiritual practice. But we think less often about what it means to receive generously. A gift has meaning when it is received and appreciated. That's as true for the gifts of our being as for more concrete gifts. Since we crave having our gifts seen, acknowledged, confirmed, it is an act of generosity to each other to receive each other's gifts. Part of that is noticing each other's gifts and speaking them aloud, as we have been discussing. But there's another layer to the practice of centering in gifts. Malidoma Somé says that there are countless people in the West whose efforts are sadly wasted because they have no means of expressing their unique genius. Some of us are lucky enough to have ways to offer our gifts in other aspects of our lives beyond the congregation, in our families, or jobs, or other groups we belong to. But some of us don't. Some of us don't have any other way to offer our gifts at all, and some of us only a little bit, or only occasionally. So as a community, part of receiving each other generously means offering each person a way to express their unique genius. Sometimes this requires creating new avenues to offer gifts in the community that haven't existed yet. This is how we help each other grow in spiritual leadership, by giving the power in each of us a way to shine. Maybe you want to offer a way for people to request a conversation about their gifts. That might look like a group that would meet a few times to lift up the gifts they see in that person. They could then help the person think about where they are already expressing those gifts in the world and where they might want to do that more. If there are important gifts that have no expression right now, this could be a way to figure out how the congregation can provide a way to express those gifts. You are a genius. Right now, without having to do anything, you are already carrying gifts for your community and for the world. Turn your attention inside. Can you notice your own gifts?
Please rise as you are able and join me in singing hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
Let me see your
Our benediction today is the words of James Morrison. Within each of our hearts, there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light of reason be a guide in your decisions. Go forth and bring its ray of hope to those in need of help in both body and spirit, that they may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to help heal our world. Go forth and spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of the world. Go forth and share your glorious light with the world.
Now please join me again in saying the chalice extinguishing words, which are projected on the walls and also are in your order of service. We extinguish the light of this chalice, but not the light in our hearts. Until we meet again, may the warmth of our community carry you.